Welcome to Christian Nutrition, the show where we review every single episode of VeggieTales chronologically. And by we, I mean just me. The Ballad of Little Joe. When I first read this title, I thought it was going to be a ballet. Thankfully, I was wrong. I know, technically, we should be reviewing Star of Christmas now since we just did Jonah. But we already did the Star of Christmas back in December for the VeggieTales Christmas specials. And technically, The Wonderful World of Autotainment did come out in between the Star of Christmas and the Ballad of Little Joe. However, that's actually classified as a special, and that will be done whenever, if I do the specials. Which means we're on to the Ballad of Little Joe, which released in August of 2003. That's right, we're already in 2003. Based on the story of Joseph, you could technically consider this a competitor to DreamWorks' release of Joseph, King of Dreams, which came out a few years prior as a full-length feature film that was direct-to-video. But anyways, let's get on with the review. I'm sure Junior's Joseph, and we'll deal with it. I'm sure we'll live. We open up with Bob and Larry on the countertop. Their question comes from a guy named Pete, asking them, if God loves me, then why do bad things happen?
I know a Bible story that I think could help you a lot.
Bob?
Yeah?
I thought we were gonna do a Western this time.
A Western?
A Western. You know, with cowboys and tumbleweeds and little doggies. You promised we could.
A Western Bible story with cowboys. I love it!
There lived a group of brothers.
Cowboy brothers. Hello, little doggies. With French accents.
What?
It's a French Western.
A French Western? Larry, we're getting a bit off track here, don't you think? Oh geez, now I'm sounding like Bob.
Dan, Natty, oh, and Jude.
Hey, Jude!
Hey Jude.
Oh, and one more. Little Joe.
Oh, thank the Lord, Junior isn't in the lead role. I wonder if that means... No, that isn't possible. We then learn how Little Joe is a bit different from the others. God has apparently given him great organizational abilities. Larry/Little Joe teaches his brothers how to count their sheep in a more efficient, less dull manner. They blow him off and say he has no idea what he is talking about.
Come and get it!
Clearly he does know what he's talking about. We find out via song that today, of all days, is Little Joe's birthday, and that he is really the favorite child of his father.
What do we get for our birthday presents?
Mittens. Little Joe is wearing a vest made from the finest calf hides.
I'm sure this is going absolutely nowhere.
And for my birthday wish, I want to tell you all about my latest dream. They bowed, you see, to the one that was me. Their dearest little brother.
That you will rule over us like a king?
It was just a dream, right?
I don't see a birthday present.
You are not looking hard enough.
Wait, did Larry not learn anything? In the very first episode, he was thrown into a lion's den. Does this not look familiar? Pay attention!
We'd love to, but we're too busy bowing down before you.
I know in the past I've declared Archibald as my favorite side character, but Archibald's had a leading role in Jonah. Does he really qualify as a side character anymore? French peas may actually steal this spot. They steal every single scene they're in as it is.
Hey, desperados! You better come to your senses!
Desperado, why don't you come to your senses?
As you may have noticed, Little Joe has been taken, but not like in the movie Taken. That would be pretty scary if Liam Neeson showed up here. Well, actually, Joe has been sold into slavery by his French pea brothers. We cut to 1 year later in Dodgeball City, staying as biblically accurate as we can with a story about Joseph played by animated vegetables in a Western setting. We see that Little Joe is an amazing employee of the pizza place he works at. Such a good employee that it makes Madame Blueberry jealous, which causes her to frame Joe for stealing. This is basically Little Joe's life right now. Before we move on to what I'm sure is a great silly song, I need to get a couple things off my chest. Numero uno. Thank goodness Junior's nowhere to be found. Numero dos. This episode has felt a bit rushed so far. What should be funny hasn't been as funny as it normally would when VeggieTales takes their time. This entire episode felt like they were trying to meet a deadline or something. Now, this is just my personal take. I don't actually know if it was rushed. However, it feels rushed. And this episode just needs more time to develop everything. The 30 minutes that this episode actually is needed probably to be about 45 to 50 minutes. But once again, personal opinion, need to get that out there.
Normally, this would be the time when the narrator comes on and says, "And now it's time for Silly Songs with Larry, the part of the show."
What is going on here? Why is Junior in the frame?
It is time to broaden our scope artistically.
Yeah, we're artists.
Word up!
A disaster is finally taking place. VeggieTales is jumping the shark, and we're all witnessing it. They're actually nailing the whole boy band thing. Dare I say this is good?
He needs to tell you something. I don't got a belly button.
This is amazing!
Went away, my heart would never heal. So to you he appeals. He needs to tell you something. I don't got a belly button. Oh,
I need to own this song right now. I need to put it on my iPod and listen to it on repeat. I never thought another song would ever top my all-time favorite, which is "Good Morning, George, How Are You?" But this has topped it. This is it. Boys in the Sink. It's perfection.
Belly button!
Never mind. I take everything back. Skip. We return to our main story with Little Joe being locked up in jail, which is quite sad for our hero.
But my belief that God is good helps overcome frustration. So I'll keep doing what is right despite incarceration.
What is going on here? Why did Larry just put himself back into the cell? I mean, I knew Larry was crazy, but I didn't know he was this crazy. Sheriff Bob then asks Little Joe why he is always in such a good mood. Little Joe explains that God is good and, well, God takes care of him. Bob asks the obvious question as to why Little Joe thinks this when bad things constantly keep happening to him. Little Joe simply explains that he does not know. I guess actually explaining that would be too deep for a kid's show, though quite wonderful to hear. The others in the jail realize that Little Joe has a knack for interpreting dreams.
How do you do that?
Well, I've always just had this thing for dreams. Just another way God made me special.
And he loves you very much. Bye!
Yeah, and he loves you very much, I've heard.
Bob, I literally just did that joke. Don't Amy Schumer me here. The mayor of Dodgeball City then hears from a former inmate that Little Joe can interpret his crazy dream that he has been having. Little Joe does just that. He explains the mayor's dream perfectly. He goes into detail about how, for 7 years, Dodgeball City will basically be the promised land.
I hear it's flowing with milk and honey.
Sounds sticky.
But after those 7 years will come 7 years of famine. He explains that it would be best to stock up during the first 7 years to survive the second set of 7 years. The mayor believes him without question, gets him out of jail, and makes him the second most powerful veggie in all of Dodgeball City. That is a lot of Mr. Twisty's Twisted Cheese Curls. I'm surprised they lasted from the time of Jonah to, the Wild West. That is quite an amazing amount of time for that company to be lasting. I should have invested stock in them. Mr. Twisty's business model in Jonah didn't really seem like that good of a business model. However, maybe Jonah's
A message from the Lord
made Mr. Twisty a nicer man and really caused his company to last for centuries. I really should have invested some stock in that company when I had the chance. Now it's too late. It's basically Google. These 7 years of famine hit, and we see Dodgeball City actually able to survive it due to, well, Larry's foresight. We see Larry / Little Joe's family suffering. The brothers go out into town to see if they can get some food for their family. Is Little Joe about to Clint Eastwood his whole family? The brothers end up talking to Little Joe about food without ever realizing it is him. Little Joe has Sheriff Bob set up his brothers to look like they stole in order to test them. The brothers end up showing Little Joe that they really have changed. He reveals his identity to his brothers and all of them bow when asking for his forgiveness. He, of course, forgives them immediately.
Ah!
My boys!
That was the best Western Bible story I ever heard.
Well, that ended abruptly.
And so what we have learned applies to our lives today. God has a lot to say in his book.
Good things and bad things happen to everyone, but God can use the good stuff and the bad stuff and put it all together to make something great.
Time to go. I gotta get ready for the next show.
Where are you going now?
Danish immersion camp.
Danish? Wait a second. What is this next episode about again?
It's a bug! A big bug!
Do I look like a bug to you?
I am not sure what Larry is talking about, but is that Rebecca St. James as the fairy? She hasn't been relevant since before this VeggieTales episode was even released.
Remember, God made you special, and he loves you very much.
Goodbye!
That was the Ballad of Little Joe, and this one's kind of tough to give a final review for. It's not as boring as The Toy That Saved Christmas or Esther, but it's not in the tier of just funny and silly like it wants to be, such as Lyle the Kindly Viking or King George and the Ducky. It does have some funny moments, and it probably would benefit from more time, as I stated earlier. It felt like it needed to be a 45-minute episode, not a 30-minute episode. There's a reason why DreamWorks made Joseph into a full-length film. There's just that much story really to cover here. However, I do appreciate VeggieTales' attempt here to do something interesting and new with a Western setting for a Bible story. The Western setting did feel a bit underutilized, but at the same time, most of the humor did derive from the Western setting, so it's kind of a catch-22. Stay tuned, as next time we tackle an Easter Carol starring quite riveting. Remember that God made you special and he loves you very much. Bye.